I'm Selwyn Collins of Conversations with Selwyn, CWS. I'm in Guyana at the Pegasus Hotel, conducting the first of a series of conversations, Guyana 60 Minutes. I'm here with the lovely Jessica Hatfield. Jessica, good evening and welcome to Conversations with Selwyn, Guyana 60 Minutes.
Good evening, Selwyn.
Jessica, thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
It's my pleasure.
I want to jump right into it.
Yeah.
When those who are close to you describe you, what do you usually agree with?
What do I usually agree with when they describe? That's a very interesting question. I think somebody said that if two people were walking down a road and there was some cow manure and we both fell in it, Jessica would come up smelling like a rose and I'd smell like shit. And I think what they're trying to say is they see and observe me as a very lucky person, but I make my own luck. It's just they seem to think that everything good happens to me, which it does, but that's because I'm in that position to able to appear that way. So lots of good things happen to me, but that's because I'm engineering it. I'm using everything in my ability to be able to change a situation to a positive outcome. So I think people perceive me as a very positive person, and I think positive energy attracts positive energy.
I agree. Well, let's take it back. Let's go deep into your early timeline.
Yeah.
Take us to Jessica at age 9 and then give us a glimpse of Jessica at age 15.
Okay. Jessica, age 9, I remember it quite clearly. I had looked around and observed that all my friends' toys that weren't being used were just in a box. And so I asked my mother if I could borrow her tea tray, and I got some string, and I made this tea tray with a string around it, put it around my neck, and I asked all my friends to donate the toys they don't usually use. And I went door to door selling. Age 9.
And at age 15?
At 15, I was contemplating starting my first catering business, which I did do at 17, and it took me a couple of years to plan. And I really, really learned how to cook. I was already, at that age, I was making cakes for the neighbours' birthday parties. And for the next step, I started a catering business, which was called Bracknell Catering Services. And I would pretend that I worked for somebody because I was so young. So they said, "Where's the boss?" "Oh, he's at home. He's in the office." And I would be organising the whole thing at age 17, which I ran until I was about 24.
Who would you say you got that type of entrepreneurial spirit from, that kind of innovative spirit from? Which of your parents?
My father. I would definitely say my father.
What was he like?
He was a multitasker. He was in the British Royal Navy, hence why I was born in South Africa. And he was very adaptable because he's always moving around all the time. And as children, we were moving around all the time, so we became very adaptable. So situations didn't faze us, and imagination ran very strong in our family. He played the banjo, he played the guitar. He was a photographer, he developed his own photographs. He built a swimming pool and then a fish pond. He was always trying things out. And he taught me. We used to play chess together, and he used to let me win. Until one day, he just decided I've learned enough, now he's going to play properly. And I had to work really hard. And he would always challenge me. If I said something, he said, "Why do you say that? Explain."
On reflection, what do you think was the most important lesson from the way you interacted with your father, or rather he interacted with you?
I think the lesson I would have learned is that we were very, very close and there was a lot of love. In fact, he would cycle home in Portsmouth and I'd run down the path and open the gate, and then he'd put me on the bicycle seat, right, and then he'd drive me down the little path. And it's that trust thing, it's that, oh, Daddy's home. And then sometimes when he came home and he was like from 3 months at sea, he'd have a furry rug and he'd pretend to be an animal. and go running around. And then he knew I loved Doctor Who, and my mother said I had to go to bed early. So he used to go, she's gone. So I used to hide behind the sofa, watch it.
So there's this camaraderie,
yes,
trust between the two of you.
Yes.
You mentioned mommy.
Yes.
Let's tell us a little bit about her.
My mother is an absolute hero to me because she was born deaf and she learned to speak on a balloon, right from the vibrations of the balloon. And at the age of 5, her hearing didn't return. She hadn't had it in the first place. She got some hearing. And then she was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, which is a hereditary blindness that runs in families. So currently, I just spoke to her this morning actually, so she says, everything's fine here, everything's fine. But she's blind and deaf, right?
Yet everything is fine.
Everything is fine. And she always makes sure that everybody's okay. Interesting enough, it was when I was growing up, because she has a slight speech impediment because of her deafness. A lot of the words we learnt, we had to relearn because she had taught us it wrong. And there was things like panty gurgle, which was panty girdle, dressing down, which was dressing gown. You know, a lot of what, and I sometimes have a little bit of hesitancy with words, thinking it's the way you pronounce it. But she is such a kind woman, everybody loves her, and she's really, really funny.
So would you say, because later on in the conversation we will get into your philanthropy, your humanitarian work and so on, indigenous people, but I'm getting the sense that perhaps that was the genesis of your adaptable spirit, learning how to adapt and to be compassionate. Because here's your mother that has these impediments, and the family adapted. Are you the only child?
No, I have 3 brothers. One brother and 2 sisters.
Two sisters?
Yeah, one sister has passed though.
Where did you fall?
I'm the eldest.
Oh, you did?
The eldest.
Responsibility.
So, yes, responsibility, and then parents have to try out parenting skills on the eldest first.
So what is your favorite memory of your mother?
Oh, gosh. I know exactly. We went into the Hall of Mirrors. She can see a bit, she can see straight in front of us, but no peripheral vision. And this is at Weston-super-Mare in England. And this Hall of Mirrors is where all the mirrors are distorted and you look really crazy in there. And she was laughing and laughing and laughing, and just when you thought she couldn't laugh any louder, she'd turn a corner and see a great big round version of herself, and then the next thing it was like a pear-shaped version of herself, and she just couldn't, and she laughed and laughed and laughed. And I think that's the most beautiful music in the world. So it really is the most beautiful music to hear somebody laugh that wholeheartedly.
We are just coming off, well actually we are still in the month of International Women's Month.
Yes.
We're just coming off of an International Women's Day celebration. Of the women in your life, including mom, who are some women who have really made an impact on you as a child growing up?
As a child, that's an interesting one. I think Auntie Elizabeth, who used to live next door at 1, all the kids were always in her house. She was very, very kind. And she would always let us use the phone, because we didn't have a phone then. I remember her distinctly. I think the old-fashioned actresses, oh my God, I love them.
Catherine Hepburn.
Yeah, Catherine Hepburn, Audrey Hepburn, all those strong feet, Betty Davis, all those strong, they don't make actresses like this anymore. And we always used to watch these films on Sunday afternoon as a family. So that became a really key part of it, just watching Catherine Hepburn and African Queen.
But for the audience again, where were you actually born?
In South Africa.
South Africa. South Africa. Wow. You know, that is interesting.
Yes.
That is wow. I was just there last June actually. Coming to Guyana from South Africa. Well, is that
No.
Okay.
I left South Africa when I was about 3.
I was 3?
Yeah,
That's
so and then my parents are British because he was in the
Right.
So we went to Portsmouth, and then we went to live in Malaya and Singapore, And that's, it's an amazing experience because I grew up with native children. They were my friends. We climb trees and eat rambutans and play making houses and camps in the jungle.
I don't want to shift too fast away from your childhood.
Yeah.
What did you enjoy playing with your mother as a child? You told us about Dad picking you up on the bicycle when you came home from the sea. Cooking?
Yeah, she's a great cake cook.
Really?
Yeah, we used to make chocolate spice cakes. I used to lick the bowl. She would make these wonderful banana cakes. She would make ice cream. She would make biscuits. She would make all sorts of amazing things. And I loved helping her.
I want to ask you this question. Here's a woman who's deaf, partially blind. By most accounts, a person with those type of impediments might very well be depressed and so on. But that was not her.
Yeah.
What do you think your mother's attitude to life, the way she embraced her impediments and became larger than life, what is your takeaway from that? What is she?
She's fiercely independent. No one is allowed to feel sorry for her. No siree.
Fiercely independent.
Yeah, so basically we have a surprise party. Just when she could see a bit, we were trying to gauge how much she could see. And then it was revealed, because she's sitting next to my sister-in-law and she doesn't recognise her, right? She doesn't even know who it is. And then my son goes up to her and then she says, "Oh, Mark," she recognises his voice. But then she goes to hold his face and goes, "Oh, you've got a beard," because she can feel it. So, but she's got, I've seen her walking to Bracknell Town Centre through the subways, right? She knows the way. And she's walking quite fast. And she can't see me. So I can observe her. And she is so amazing. No one would know that she can't see a thing. She won't use a white stick.
She wouldn't. That's strength.
Yeah.
And courage.
She will not use that white stick. Like, she doesn't want people saying, "Oh, look at the poor blind woman." She does the shopping for the old ladies in the care home. So she does their shopping. She picks out clothes for them. I said, "Are you taking a blind woman to go and play?" But she's very good at it.
If you could speak for her, if you dare speak for her,
Yeah.
what would be her words about, or her thoughts about International Women's Month?
I think that as a woman, she's achieved an enormous amount in terms of the love of her family and her grandchildren and her friends. Wherever she came to live with me once, and she lived with me for 2 years. And initially, I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but then, because she had an independent moment, she decides to go and move back to where she lived. And we begged, all my friends, everybody begged her not to go. We were at a dinner party at my house, there was about 30 people, and she said, I'm going. And they went, "No, please don't go, please don't go. Pam, you've got to stay here. Mum, everybody loves you, just stay." Because she was so lovable.
Did you ever find out why she wanted to go back?
Independence again.
Independence again.
Always the independent.
What did you want to do when you were growing up?
Oh, we went through several phases. The fireman phase, which actually did keep resurfacing, but at the end, I think ultimately I always wanted to run my own business.
To run your own business?
Yes.
That's independence again?
Again.
Mommy.
Yeah. I wasn't going to work for anybody.
When did you actually arrive in Guyana?
In 2009.
What was that like? Culture shock?
Not really, because I'm well travelled. Maybe, but interesting enough, much more of a real person. Because people, when you said, "Have a nice day," and you're so used to throwing it back in a glib way without any meaning or intent, that it actually was hurtful for Guyanese. And that's when I first started to understand what a truly remarkable people they were. Because I've been so used to in America or England or Europe, and they go, "Have a nice day." And they go, "Yes, you have a nice day too," and nobody means it. Not really. But here, the taxi driver said, "You have a good day." And I go, "Yeah, you have a good day too." And then you go like this. I was like, "Oh, he's hurt because I didn't mean it." So then I started saying it, meaning it, really. And that changed me. I thought, if they mean it, I mean it. It was quite an extraordinary revelation that you can actually say it and people observe you knowing that you didn't mean it. So that was one of my first thoughts. I also used to think that people generally weren't very good timekeepers. Right, which we all know. But we learn to live with it.
Yes.
Okay, you just don't be in a hurry for anything. I've learned patience. I've learned all these wonderful qualities that I never used to have. Patience. You have to have a lot of patience.
Yes.
But, God, I love the Guyanese. They're so funny.
You find that?
Oh my God, yes. Their sense of humour is absolutely hilarious. What they observe, it's just, when I'm coming back from the Pomeroon, and I'm in a boat like a few days ago, and the things they're talking about, and they're laughing and laughing and laughing. And it's wonderful. It's so funny, and I love it when you're in the middle of this big gaff and everyone's like laughing and laughing, and nobody is the butt of the joke. It's just observations.
And laughter.
Yeah, and laughter. I really enjoy that.
Why did you come to Guyana? I
came here originally. I co-founded a company called Plenogen, and we had received interest from a big biomass power station in north of England, who wanted to get a steady supply of biomass because they were building two 400 megawatt power stations. So I came here to set up an investigation to see whether this country could support that order. And we had thought about bringing something we developed in India, which was called it's a bamboo that's a solid wall bamboo, and it's perfect. It had been tested by the power station. It was low ash, high BTU, perfect, and we need to pelletize it. So I did this whole thing. I first came here for about a week. I stayed in this hotel. Then I put my report to my board, and I said we should further investigate this. So we brought another team down, which consisted of operations director and our agriculture director, who did the soil tests, and we found this land. We made investigations with Go Invest, and it's in Berbice, of about 10,000 acres. And unfortunately, I think I was here maybe on and off about a year. And then I looked at the Amalia Falls road project and wanted to know what was going to happen with all that wood that was going to be felled. So we won the contract to actually remove it. But the road hadn't been finished. And whilst we had raised the money, and we'd pre-sold all the logs globally, and created a market for Bolivar, which nobody had ever heard of before, I regretfully said, we can't do this because we just don't know when this road is going to end. So we moved on to biomass gasification, which is using rice husks and coconut husks. And we did several proposals to rice millers in this country, but maybe it was a bit too ahead of its time. So, whilst we still had all that information, I then left my own company because what was happening, I was starting to form a very strong attachment to Guyana, and I didn't want to go back to Africa where I was working before in Ghana. So I decided that I would do something completely different and work with children. Yes.
Really?
Yes. I'd never done this before. And I thought, so I was already a patron of my children's aid centre, so I started spending every day there. And then people would know I was working there, and then I get other things happening, like a child really needs an operation. And I managed to get this child, a doctor, sent to America, where the child had a really successful operation which saved their life. It cost about $480,000 US, but everybody donated free. And then one of the doctors asked his mother if they could adopt him, and she said she wasn't living with him. He was living with the alcoholic mum. So it was a very great outcome, and he is still in contact with both his mothers, and he's so happy, and he's learned to read and write because he didn't read or write. And then people hear of that, and then they hear of another case, like the woman with the acid burns. Well, I managed to get her into Canada, for life-saving treatment. And then there was a boy with a big head, which was hydrocephalus, which we're just building a house for him now, after raising money. And then when I went to Pomeroon, I saw all these children who should be at school but weren't enabled. And I realised just the smallest little thing can make such a difference in his life. The smallest little thing. Didn't going to cost a load of money, just buy some uniforms, pay the dorm fees, but then this child has an education. And that is absolutely vital. It's the biggest gift you can give.
Tell us about the Pomeroon.
Pomeroon.
Well, let me expand on that a little bit. Tell us about the Pomeroon through the lens of a woman, through the lens of a humanitarian, and through the lens, I would say, of an adventurer.
Oh my goodness, that's so delicious. Can't wait to get onto this one. Well, through the eyes of a woman relating to other women is very special. Like sometimes I go down to Alison's house, and she lives about 4 properties further down the creek. We live on the Blackwater Creek, and she's got this. I've got an oven that's outside, which was run on coals, and she's got one that's run on coals. So I like to go and see how she's doing with her oven, and then we're going to swap. She's going to come to my place and use my oven and see what, you know, and we just spend, and she said, do you want to see my farm? And I go, I'd love to. So then I go around her farm, and I go, oh my goodness, you've got lovely clean drains. I feel quite envious. You do have 5 sons, so that's what I expect. And we just have such a blissful time. And I think that women there understand the importance of life, that keeping their family close, keeping a warm environment within the house, the home, and lovely, lovely food to feed them. They're all great cooks, and all the produce, most of us are farmers, so we're growing our own things.
You mentioned to me in a conversation we had earlier about teaching ecotourism and agriculture.
Yes.
What is your connection to agriculture? What is this intimacy you have with agriculture?
Well, if you remember, I came here to do an energy crop plantation, 10,000 acres of growing bamboo. So, you know, my skill set is really limited in terms of agriculture, just understanding how bamboo works, and also 3 other different fast-growing trees. But I think once you understand the relationship with growth and the land, it's quite, and also I've always been a gardener. I've always grown, even in Georgetown. Even in London, I had my own vegetable garden. I had chickens in my London house.
In the house?
I had a little mini house, mini farm in London. You know, the whole thing was all set aside for agriculture, so I've always loved that. I really have. So it's a magical thing.
What has the Pomeroon taught you so far?
To truly appreciate nature, to truly appreciate the sounds of the birds, and to understand its place in your happiness. That sometimes everything can be stripped away and still you can be crazily happy with so little. And all you're working with is what nature gives you. The beautiful creek, the wonderful, wonderful trees, the wonderful breezes, the fishman that comes through straight from the Atlantic with his horn making a bamboo sound, and then you rush out to buy the fish and you think, oh my God, it's so exciting. How happy can you be about buying fish?
Yes.
It's a wondrous thing. I just love the Pomeroon.
You love people?
I love people, and I love the people of the Pomeroon.
The indigenous people?
All of them, because I'm the director of 2 farmers' cooperatives, the Akawini Perseverance Cooperative Society and PICA, which is the Pomeroon Enterprise Akawini Hackney Co-op. And we had a farmers' meeting last Thursday at my place. It was just wonderful.
What was your takeaway from that particular meeting?
Well, because everyone's a strong character, right? And we're trying to get some confusion out. But generally what I have to do is conduct them like an orchestra, so they don't all talk simultaneously. But I have a great sense of achievement when that happens. No, Joyce, over here. No, you say, right? And at the end of it, everyone comes out smiling and happy. What I love about it is sometimes there's little gifts from me, right? Yeah. Somebody's made some of the fruit cake, and then and somebody's made chow mein down the river and then somebody's delivering it.
It's a real community.
Oh gosh, and then I give them grapefruit if I've got them,
Yeah.
and then they give me this, and then I give them that, and then there's meadows, and everyone's like giving each other things that they've grown.
You talk about great food, you have someone in your life who's a great chef, you told me.
Yes.
Is he Guyanese?
He is Guyanese, but interesting enough for Ian, he spent 33 years in England, I think it was, and several years in America. He left when he was 10, and he came back last April, not knowing what to really see or find or expect. But then he decides that he's going to go back to England, pack up everything and come back to Guyana for good, which is a marvellous thing because he's a very skilled and very, very kind human being. And all he wants to do is help people in Guyana. So now we're a team doing this.
This is awesome.
Yes, we're very complementary to each other.
This is awesome. There's a place called Adela Rainforest Eco Lodge.
Yeah, Adele's.
Adele's Rainforest Eco Lodge, which you own.
I'm leasing it.
You're leasing it.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this place.
Okay, this was first purchased by Frederic Pierre Dubois.
Frenchman?
Yeah, Frenchman who was the governor of Region 2. And he bought the land as a farm. And in 1890, he left that to his daughter Adele, and then subsequently left it to her granddaughter, who is Zena Bone. And it's been in the family all that time. There's also a 1,000-acre coconut estate, which is also part of the same thing, which Zena and June stole. So I like the history of it, I like the fact it's unchanged, and I like the energy in it. And I've always felt very strongly, because Zena Bone is a very good friend of mine, I've been going there for many, many years. And one day I was helping her out with a group of people, because she was in Washington, looking after them. And I thought, and the reason I'm going back to Georgetown is, and I couldn't find a reason. I just said, and she had been asking me for ages to run the place. So I've been doing that for 2 years, but now we're going into a lease situation.
You really like this place?
I love it. I can't imagine being anywhere else.
When I first decided to interview you, one of the questions that popped into my mind is to compare the Pomeroon, albeit that you believe it's a very unfair question, but to compare the Pomeroon with Georgetown. And how would you approach?
They're totally different. I have a flat in Georgetown, and I have things I need to do in Georgetown I can't achieve in the Pomeroon, quite simply. I need to be in Georgetown to do the various things that I have to do, like the co-ops, attending meetings, working out something with a child, finding somebody sick in Wakapo, for example, and bringing them back to Georgetown for treatment. All that sort of stuff. So I'm here every couple of weeks. And then I go back to the Pomeroon, and then my soul starts to sing.
What is so special about Adele's Rainforest
Peace.
Ecology? Peace.
Peace.
Everybody
says it. The second you walk in, and it's you greet them with the cold cloths. They wipe the sweat of the journey away. You give them some coconut water, and they just go They just go and it's so peaceful here. And I don't think people understand that when you're all the time in strong communication with your WhatsApp and your Facebook and things pinging and emails going and phone ringing, sometimes you just need to turn everything off and recharge your batteries and actually think and just be is really, really important. And that's what I think most people get. And also they have the opportunity to observe Indigenous life in a really real way. Because I have very good contacts with Wakapo and Akawini. So we're able to go in and visit people in their everyday life, like a coffee farmer, who will grow his own coffee, sun-dry it on his zinc sheets, and then he will take the husk off, and then he roasts it over a fire, slowly, and then he grinds it, and then he gives you a cup of coffee. And that process has all been from him, and the coffee is unbelievable. And that's, again, getting back to simplicity. To enjoy yourself, you don't have to have a big performance. It's something as simple as that. Sitting down with a man who has done all the work to create that coffee for you. And then you can ask him, and he loves to talk. And then they love to listen and they ask questions. And he will answer. And before long, they've been there 3 hours and they don't want to leave. I said, well, we've got canoeing to do yet, and that's always a highlight of my trip.
So community again.
Yeah.
For those who would like to visit this place, is there a website or something?
Yes.
That they can...
Yeah.
What is the name of it?
It's www.adeleresort.com.
AdeleResort.com.
And TripAdvisor has a lot of our guests posting very nice reviews, so they can actually...
An accommodation, how many?
We can sleep with about 20 people.
20 people?
Yes. And it's set in 64 acres of organic fruit orchard.
Oh my God.
So what the guests do is back to simplicity again.
Back to simplicity.
What we do is we take them for a walk around and we let them pick their own fruit. And they come back, with bananas and grapefruit and lemons and oranges, depending what's on season.
All organic.
All organic. And what I said to them, look, this experience of fruit juice in the morning is you pick that fruit. Where else in the world can you do that?
Jessica, I discovered that you're not new to tourism.
No.
That you worked with the tour operators in Australia for 22 years.
No, not 22 years, only about 3 years.
For 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years.
Okay.
I work for Bill King's Australian Adventure Safari Tours, and I'm a fully trained safari guide and cook.
And the you had permission to visit the Aboriginal land?
Yes, we have 22 passengers on a big desert. It's a Mercedes-Benz Unimog, and it's like big vehicle with 4-wheel drive. And we had these 22 people that come from Australia and all over the world, and we experienced the bush, coming out of Alice Springs, taking in Ayers Rock. So we're on the road for 9 days, every night a different campsite. Every night I would set up the kitchen, every night we would sit around the fire.
You're quite an adventurer.
The
elders do not back you.
No, but what happened is the Pitjantjatjara tribe, who befriended me because I used to sleep on the ground like they did. Everybody else slept in a tent.
Why did you sleep on the ground?
Because I couldn't bear not to see the stars. Because the stars were so beautiful that I would be next to the fire with my billy, which is a big black pot full of water that's boiling away, ready for the morning. And I just used to look at the stars.
You didn't care about snakes?
Do you know what? As everybody said that, but I would rather take the risk. So I slept all the time in what's called it's a swag, it's a canvas bedrock. And it's just canvas, a mattress, and pillow.
And you looked up at the stars?
Yeah, I did one day a whole lot of dingoes with me, but I got everybody's shoes and threw them at them. And then everybody had to find their shoes.
What are dingoes?
Oh, they're a wild dog. Yeah. But you see, the Australian Aboriginal people, the tribe was called Pitjantjatjara, they really respected me for that. So what happened is the children would come to my camp and I'd be cooking something, and the way they cook is they just throw some kangaroo in the fire and singe and fur off a bit and then eat it. So when I was chucking the chicken in, they were just all jumping in, and I thought, oh God, that would be alright, but that's how they live. And it was the kids that came in first. And then I used to have a kite that would regularly, this was at Uluru, there'd be this wedge-tailed kite, and every time I was cooking anything, it used to land on my head, which I didn't like. So I got this Aboriginal kid to whirl a stick around my head so that the kite could land on it. And so we all became very firm friends. So I bought some oranges from Alice Springs, and then they would eat them with the skin off, because they've never had them before. But I thought that's okay. And then gradually, the parents would form a ring around my camp to pick up their children. And it was always around sunset, so the sun was setting, the dust was rising, and the people came, and it was so beautiful.
Wow.
And then I started noticing them come further and further in, not quite at the camp, it took like 6 months for this to happen. Eventually they came in the camp, and I said to them, do you want some tucker, which is food? And they said yes, so we all had some food together. And then the women invited me to their ancient corroboree, where for 40,000 years they have taught the women of the tribe the ancient songs and the ancient stories and the ancient dances, and they were teaching the next generation under the moon.
This is interesting. The indigenous culture, the Aborigines, the women were the ones who carried on the tradition.
No, there's two traditions. There's a man tradition,
Right.
which is sacred, and the woman tradition is sacred, and the two can't cross over.
They can't cross.
No, the boys would go out on initiations, and they would first of all get worry marks and to show how tough they were at 14. So the more they can endure, then they were sent off, and they had to be out in the bush for as long as they could. So the longer they were out, the more of a man they were. And they also had initiation things in Uluru, which is a big rock called, again, that was formerly called Ayers Rock. And we don't know what happens in there with the men. And the men don't know what happens with the women because they can't come. But we know what we were doing. We were doing the dancing and singing.
How did that experience change you?
Oh, totally. I just thought, sometimes you don't evolve. 40,000 years, these people barely evolved. And there's a reason for it. They didn't have any necessity to evolve. There was no reason.
So in other words, our tools, the tools we made, change us.
Yeah, we become more needy and dependent, where they were just, they had a culture of such richness that I was privileged to be able to enjoy being part of that.
This is International Women's Month. We just met at CWS International Women's Day. Any reflections? Personal reflections?
Yes. I thought the women were incredible that you chose. They were, and there was one video cast from London from the doctor, who was quite an extraordinary speaker, and all of the guys.
Yeah.
Right, so that was the whole point, was the empowerment of the women listening and being present in that audience. That women tend to have a glass ceiling. Sometimes a woman can be born with a glass ceiling, and she needs to break through that glass ceiling. And I think you enable women to listen to other women's stories and then understand that glass ceiling doesn't need to exist, and that you just need to put that glass ceiling to one side and start to shine, start to grow, because you can't grow if you've got that limit of expectations on them.
That is so profound. Thank you. Thank you very much. You work with the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs on the Hinterland Employment Youth Scheme.
Yes.
What is it you do there?
Well, I was a volunteer because I just happened to turn. They were staying at Adele's because they were going to the 5 communities, and on the very first day it started, I had never been down to Akamini, so I decided that I would hitchhike on it. And then they told me all about the program on the way. I said, I'd love to help. And they said, great. So I was part of it after that. I was a volunteer. I just fell into it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it
What was your proudest moment in that scheme?
Oh, there's no question. Kavitha from Kabakabori, she was voted the best student on the Hayes program. And she and I went to a press conference with Minister Alikon and Minister Lowe, and she spoke about what the difference it made to her, one young woman's experience. And all the Indigenous people in Guyana listened to her, because she lost her mother when she was a baby. Her father was 80 years old. She was 16, going on 17 when she joined the Hayes program. She really was in a struggle. And she was resistant. I remember how resistant she was. I don't need to learn, Then suddenly she got it. And then she started forming businesses with these other girls. They got in a dugout canoe, and they were making pastries and going around the community paddling and selling. That was a really good success. Then she moved on to agriculture. Now, she actually earned enough money to buy her and her dad a house, to build a house for them.
That's a success story.
Now she's in chickens. She's doing agriculture chickens. She's given up the pastries. She's trying each thing. And once she went off, there was no stopping her. No stopping this girl. And what I found, she then thought, added value. If I'm rearing chickens for meat, I'm going to have barbecues on Saturday, barbecue chickens. Brilliant.
Brilliant. What is your deepest concern, perhaps your deepest fear, for the Indigenous women of Region 2?
I think it's very difficult for them to find any employment. And to this end, I approached an international organisation called CUSA. Yeah, who then, a wonderful woman called Dr. Mel Kindred, she'd come to Adele's just as a guest, but then I showed her what needed to be done. She goes, I can help you. And so she wrote her own job placement. It was accepted by Canada. She's now halfway through a 6-month placement, and she's working with the Indigenous women and the youth. And she's doing a great thing because she's an enabler. They don't know how to connect to certain things. Like they could qualify for small business loans. They could just set up a little, like with our oven top, for example, which Eon has developed. With that, they can start baking pastries. They only have to have coals, and everybody can get hold of coals. So they can now start, instead of being reliant on other sources, is to create the businesses within the community. So that is very, very important work that she's going to be doing. We're also doing ecological accents on tourism. So we've done 2 Harpy Eagle expeditions in the past Akarina village, using 2 of the youths each time, teaching them about tourism, teaching them bird watching, training them to be tour guides. And we were very successful. The first expedition we saw evidence of 4 nests, and the second expedition we actually saw another new nest with a pair of Harpy Eagles. And we've now identified 2 further nests, so we have to have another expedition to go and map them. And we work with the community, the Tushau, the council, and they are absolutely marvellous in terms of getting that message out to the community that we need to protect these beautiful animals.
If you were to, and I know this is a stretch for you, if you were to leave Akuin, leave the Pomeroon, what would you hope that the people of that area would have learned from you? One thing you would hope they have.
The importance of education. I never give up on the kids. I just keep going, even when I've got resistance, when it's a grandmother and she just wants the daughter to stay with her for company and do the chores, because she's an orphan. And I just keep going and keep going and keep going. And when I get that kid at school with smiles, and she doesn't want to go home because she's quite worried that she might not get released again. So it's real, and it makes me so proud when I get there and they're all so happy. And one of them started to cry one day. She goes, I said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "Have you come to take me back?" I said, "No." She goes, "Oh, thank goodness."
When are you most happy?
I'm always most happy when I'm in the Pomeroon.
In the Pomeroon?
Yeah, absolutely doing something absolutely quiet and reflective. Maybe just doing, picking some lemons. Maybe just thinking, what can I make out of all these ingredients? So like, I've got this shade house, or I might be in the shade house, working in the shade house, and I'm planting, and I go, oh my God, I want to make mustard leaves that look lovely. We could have cherry tomatoes.
If you could go back in time,
Yeah.
what would you tell your 15-year-old self?
Do exactly what you do. Don't make any changes because it turns out all right in the end.
If you had the ear of the President of Guyana and the Honourable Minister Sidney Alipar, what is one thing you could tell both of them?
I think with Mr. Sidney Allicock, I think he needs to understand that Region 2 is a tourist heaven and that hardly any tourists really reach there, and I think we need to have more support from that. And I would also talk to Guyana Tourism Association on that as well, because the guests that we do get are absolutely love it. And I really think that we need to pursue that whole tourism thing with the Indigenous people, because what we're providing is something that we all agree in advance, and it is just simply to sit with them and observe. And the Indigenous love to do it. Everybody gets compensated. All the handicrafts being resurrected now, because people have gone back to that because our tourists are buying.
Yes.
So I think that's really important. And I think with the President, I think Region 2, I think it's a farming community. I think the farmers need a lot of help. I think we need to look at the whole area of their land because most of them are on, they don't own the land, it's some kind of grant that was given maybe 2 generations ago. And in order for a farmer to prosper, he needs to borrow against the value of his land. And I think it would be really useful that the people who have been on there for generations have the same rights as the indigenous, and the same rights that they've been on that land, just give them title to that land.
Give them title.
Yeah, I think that would make a huge difference to how they feel about the land. The relationship with their land is a strong one because they're farmers, and I think they need to have ownership of it. And I think that will go a long, long way to the prosperity of the Pomeroon in the agriculture sector.
What makes you laugh out loud?
Guyanese people make me laugh because they're really, really humorous and they've got terribly good wits. So I just, the things they say is just hilarious. And I just love being around ordinary folk, in a boat, their observations. Look at that woman, she's got 3 dogs, and fine dogs. Do you think she's got a husband? I don't know, I've got up the dogs. He might be a bad husband. She's just like that all the time.
Jessica, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Thanks. Thank you.